right, guys, today we're talking about the fall to winter transition. It's going to happen at different times depending on where you live on the map, but basically starts around mid-November to early December. And the number one factor is water temperature. What's happening is there's an invisible line in the water column known as the thermocline. What this line does is it separates the deeper water that generally has colder, more consistent temps and lower oxygen levels from the shallower water that tends to fluctuate more often because of things like sunlight, precipitation, and generally has more oxygen. For that reason, the bass tend to spend the majority of the season from early spring to late fall above that line. Once those temps get into the high 30s, low 40s, that is where the thermocline begins to break down. Your body of water will begin to mix, become one more uniform temperature, at which point your bass will really start to move to their winter holds. If you're fishing a smaller body of water like a local pond, relatively featureless, basically shaped like a bowl, in the winter those bass are seeking out the deepest point, so that generally tends to be out in the center of those man-made ponds. That's a good spot to start if that's where you're at. If you're on more of a highland reservoir or a large body of water with big coves and multiple openings to the main body of water, any number of these can contain bass that are keeping bait fish corralled on those final drop-off points so that they can feed on them up until the point they make that final push to deeper water for winter. So checking the center hollows of those points is always a key spot this time of season. And remember, they're seeking out things like offshore rock in the winter or laid down timber, other foreign objects that provide cover for them during these colder parts of the year. When it comes to lure selection, I usually start off with the lipless crankbait. If that's not getting it done, I'll switch to a blade bait like the Acme V-Rod. Both of these are great bait fish imitators. Both of these can be fished the same way by utilizing that yo-yo technique to effectively imitate a dying or injured bait fish, which is key this time of season with the drop in water temps. It's also a great way to effectively cover water quickly, find where those winter bass are starting to group up. Then you can switch to your finesse bait, slow things down a bit, start to pick them apart. But because I love to power fish and because it hasn't quite gotten cold enough yet for these bass to start getting lethargic, you can still trigger a lot of reaction bites. I'm on a lake with lower visibility conditions, stained water. I've got that bold red color as a good contrast against the water color. I've got the added draw of the rattle to pull them in from farther out. And as we've talked about in previous videos, red is a big trigger color for bass regardless of the time of year. All these are reasons why I generally start off with a lipless. As we get farther into winter, temperatures drop, bass get lethargic, and they are a lot less likely to give chase to those reaction baits. That's when that rattle from a lipless crankbait can actually start to scare a percentage of those skittish winter bass. So I'll switch from the lipless to a more subtle profile in a blade bait, and I find that it is highly effective either fluttering it as a dying bait fish utilizing that yo-yo technique that we talked about, or by just hitting the bottom, dragging it through the mud, kicking up that mud trail, and triggering a reaction bite from a group of bass that are holding tight to the bottom. And that's pretty much what we did here. As soon as I caught that first one out around 40 to 50 feet, I immediately switched to a more subtle presentation in the blade bait, started working it closer to the bottom, and we caught a lot more fish. Ended up getting 4 more on the blade bait, so 5 total just on the reaction baits this morning, which is why I like to start even in the wintertime with reaction baits, because like I said, until they absolutely start to slow down and shut down and not give chase to anything at all, I will not throw those finesse baits until I absolutely have to. So 1-2 punch of the lipless and the blade bait is a great option to start off for power fishing, covering water, especially at new bodies of water during the fall to winter transition. After that, another great reaction bait, our new Huntress deep diving crankbait that is designed to be fished very aggressively in the fall and the winter time. You can still trigger a ton of reaction bites with this bait and cover a lot of water quickly. Our new 7-inch trout glide bait is ultra slow sinking, making it perfect for winter time. You can slow roll this anywhere in the column and draw some massive bites. Same with our 6-inch hand poured swim baits. Another great bait to just slow roll across the bottom, fish it like you would an expensive Huddleston style bait, but they are much more affordable. We can customize them any color for you, and in the wintertime we pour them of a lighter durometer plastic, so when those low temps hit, they don't stiffen up and you still have all that great action and kick. After that, another great option is either a 3/16 or 5/16 finesse jig with a smaller craw or grub trailer on it. That or a shaky head with a finesse worm or even a craw are both great baits to work along those ledges and drop off points, those last deep water access areas where those bass, keeping the last of their fall bait fish corralled until they prepare to push out to deeper water for the winter. You can work both of those baits slowly around those ledges, drop off points, or if they've already made the push out to deep water for the winter, find them on that offshore rock and put it right on top of them. Last but not least is going to be a Texas rig craw. For me, it's one of the most versatile bass baits that you can throw year round, no matter where you live on the map. You can bed fish with it in the spring. You can fish it high and fast in the water column during the summer. You can slow roll it mid column during the fall, or you can absolutely crawl the bottom during the winter. It lends itself to all year round applications. And because we already found those bass out at that 40 to 50 foot mark, holding on that offshore rock or cover, we know that they're there. We don't have to throw those reaction bites, which are going to start getting bit less and less the more that they start to shut down. That's when you can throw that craw right in front of their face. Because we make them all with a floating plastic formula, it's going to stand on end just like a craw would. When they feel threatened, they will stand up on end, take that defensive posture, and it is a great way to trigger a strike, even in the most lethargic winter bass. That's what we did. Came back to the same spot we found them stacked up offshore yesterday with the lipless and the blade baits, picked them apart with the finesse bait. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because that's the best way to show your support. Hit that bell notification because that will keep you up to date with all our new videos and our giveaways. And I'd love to hear from you guys, so don't hesitate to leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Until next time, I'm D with Kickin' Bass TV.
Subscribe!